So you finally did it. You saved up enough money to buy an army in whatever tabletop game you want to play. And now you have to paint it. So the big question is, do you do traditional paints? Or should you give speed paints a try? I've been trying them. Let me tell you what I think. Let me say this first before I get into the speed paints. When I first heard about them, I thought, oh, it's a shortcut. It's not whatever the professional painters use. It's not worth using unless all you care about is just throwing paint at your miniatures and getting them on the table. I mean, literally, the method that uses these, that's the most popular method, is the slap chop, because you literally are just slapping on some paint.
Slap on that flex tape! Slap it on with the might of Zeus!
But I'm here to tell you that speed paints actually have a lot of really good uses, even if you're not using them to paint the main miniature. So, let's talk about those. And now, I'm not saying that you can't use speed paints to paint the whole model. In fact, I think it's a great way to use them. It all depends on what your final goal is. I mean, are you painting an army for armies on parade? Are you painting an army just so you can have something that looks good on your shelf or to play with? Yeah, that, I would say speed paints, that's the category they fit in best. I mean, if you want to just slap paint on something and get on the board, yeah, there's nothing better than them. But if you're looking to paint something well and be happy with it, speed paints are as viable of an option as anything else. And keep in mind, when I say speed paints, I mean contrast paints, speed paints, dipping inks. They've got a lot of names. Basically, it is a very thinned down paint that has a transparency to it. Okay? And they all have this transparency, and that's what makes it work with slap chop. And I'm going to throw a caveat. If you don't know what slap chop is, it is when you prime a miniature black and then you dry brush it white. Okay, and you have to dry brush it pretty heavily for the speed paints to work properly, and then you just throw the paints on. In my mind, sure, that's great. You can make them look pretty good that way, but if you do a few extra little things, it makes it go a lot further. And so those things that I would suggest are simply that when you do the dry brushing, start with something that isn't just white. Start with a gray. In my case, I used from P3, I used their Drake gray. It's not white, it's almost like a pinkish gray. And I did that on the bulk of the model. Okay, I got that just about everywhere. And then once that had dried, and it's kind of nice because you can army paint, do batches, right? So prime them all, go through, dry brush them all with this pretty heavily. The darkest places, sure, leave them dark. You're trying to do a zenithal with a dry brush, and that's why I say this. This is your mid-tone, black is obviously your dark, and then your highlight, that's when you come in with your titanium white, with your Morrow white, if you're using P3 paints, and use zenithal highlight. You can dab with the brush, you can dry brush the top, but make sure you're just getting those peak areas. That way, when you do hit it with your speed paint, it's not just red, black, red. It's bright red, red, black, red. It gives you that 3-tone gradient, right? That is what you really, really want. Okay, so that's my caveat for making slap chop work. Okay, and then once you've done that, don't be afraid to use normal paint with your speed paint. It's not a bad idea, and honestly, it makes highlighting and doing other things like that. And let's say you want to do leather straps and you want them to be a nice solid brown, you can do that right over the top of whatever paint you just used. So speed paints are for speed. That's literally what it is. And I mean, I got a basic army from Infinity, right? From the Mazebreaker box. It's the Nomads faction. And I thought these guys will be great because I can use these bright, vibrant speed paints and paint them all. I didn't finish, but I was able to do a lot in about 2 hours. I think that's pretty good. Okay, now I mentioned that there are other things other than just painting your miniatures with speed paints that you can use them for. And the two things that stick out to me are washes, first off. Okay, a speed paint is almost a wash. With a little bit of water, it's a wash. Okay, and so if you need to do a red wash or a blue wash or a brown wash, just add a little bit of water to it. You can add speed painting medium if you have that, which is even a better option. And it becomes this perfect wash that you can put over things. Okay, and you know, if you decide that your dark areas aren't dark enough on whenever you're painting, a dark brown speed paint wash goes on really easy. Okay, and there's some maneuverability when it comes to using these. Yes, they dry quickly, and yes, once they've dried, they have a thickness to them if you leave them on too much. That is kind of, it's a process. Try them. You'll understand, and the second you learn how to do it, you'll be like, oh, this is kind of nice. And then you'll learn that, you know, if you decide that you want it to be red with like hints of orange, you can hit it with a red speed paint, and then you can come over the top and not just wash, but do a highlight with a yellow speed paint, and it'll reactivate the red. And it's interesting, it's fun. It reminds me of painting almost with like watercolors on paper, but you're doing it on a model, and of course it stays on there a lot better. But so you can use them as washes, you can use them as a nice little highlighting tool. And lastly, with that being said, OSL effects, they're transparent. So if you put them on something that's white, guess what? It's now see-through. And so with the vibrant colors like red and orange and yellow and green and blue that they have, they make doing OSL quick. And it's not, I'm not saying that it's like, I shouldn't say OSL, but it adds lights to things really well. Doing the OSL effect, you still need to get that white around the light, and then you can put it on there with the speed paint. The one thing I will say about speed paints is that their white is not great, but it's transparent white, and it's not, you know, it's great for what it's supposed to do. But if you want to do OSL, it's always nice to have like a white ink or white paint next to it. And so that's kind of the beauty of speed paints, is that they work really well by themselves if you just want to get stuff on the table or get something done quickly. If you're looking for that middle ground that's like a really good looking miniature, I think you need them both. That's my honest opinion. I don't have the patience to sit and let things dry like hardcore and then try and do layers and things like that. And I feel like with speed paints, I mean, they're supposed to be quick, they're supposed to be fast, but doing those and then coming back and hitting them and doing maybe a little bit of like edge highlighting with like normal paints can make speed paints go really far, and they're fun to use. So, do you need speed paints? No. If you don't have a paint set and you're looking to buy a paint set to start, do acrylic first. My honest opinion, do acrylic first. Get used to using those paints, and then if you want to dabble with speed paints, grab a couple. Get a kit that comes with, 12 of them. Army Painter has awesome multiple kits for speed paints that do all sorts of different things, and they work fantastic with your paints. And in the end, yeah, you can paint an army pretty fast. Speed paint an army. I couldn't do it in 2 hours, but I'm sure there's people that could. But if I had 2 more, I'd have an army ready for the table. So, speed paints. Kind of nice. And anyway, if you like games like Infinity, like Warhammer, like Warmachine, like Warcrow, there's a lot of war in war games. Who would have thought, right? But subscribe, stick around. I post videos every week about painting, about models, about the different games, about the tabletop gaming hobby as a whole. And I love to share what I learn with people, and I love to hear what you have to say. So let me know. Are speed paints worth it? Are they worth your time? What do you think? Do you like them? And do you use them specifically alone when painting? Or do you do like I do and combine them with normal paints or inks or other things? Let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear, and I always comment back. So, give me a shot. And as always, thank you for sticking around. And just don't forget, don't spend so much time building your world, painting your world, that you forget to spend some time in it. Until next time.